Hi, Mountview Church, and welcome to the December Supper Club. We are glad to be back with you. We have a topic that we are excited about. It's called From Sunday to Monday, Integrating Faith in Life. And today's topic, we are engaging with faith in parenting or faith in loving children and working with children.
We may not all have kids in our lives directly, but maybe as grandparents or cousins and aunts and extended family, or just kids in our church that you might come across.
That's right.
So even if you don't have kids at home, we hope this is still helpful to you as you think about it. And it is particularly with kids, I think, a challenge of how do you take the values that we are talking about on Sunday and not only take them into the week, but then translate them, to these kiddos that some of these ideas seem a little abstract and a little, out there for them. And how do we keep it, on a level that makes sense for them? And so lots to talk about with all of this. And we thought we would get someone here on staff who's right in the midst of all of this. We have the Reverend Dr. Jason Hayes, who most of you know as our executive director here at the church. But he's all you may not know is the parent of 2 children, and I'll let you give us a sense of, let's just start there, Jason. Tell us a little bit about your family life.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah. And thanks for inviting me. Yeah, my children are 6 and 8. My partner and I come from 2 different religious traditions. I'm the Christian tradition and my partner is Jewish. And so we are sharing our faith and raising children and moving from Sunday to Monday in 2 different traditions, which brings a rich opportunity to think about how we pass on our traditions. We do it a little differently.
I like that use of the word traditions, as we don't use that as much, but particularly it makes, the folks coming from the Jewish tradition, I think we intuitively kind of get that, and we don't often talk about that in Christian circles, but maybe say a little more about that. What's it?
Yeah, I mean, we in our household, we often say, we light Advent candles, an Advent wreath. Yeah. Oh, this is Daddy's tradition. Or, we light Shabbat candles on Friday. We light a lot of candles in our household.
That's so good, and children love that.
Children love candles, they do. So it's a way for us to help children differentiate, which tradition. And we also think about sharing our traditions less about, I have to teach the faith, right? I don't have to teach doctrine to my children. Yep. Instead, we invite them into these practices that we have both in home and in our congregations, but also less about making sure we have them believe the right thing, but instead sharing our journey, our experience of our traditions, right? So I share about my experience as a child, and as I connect to what they're engaging, or I will share and invite them into my own wrestling with, I hear a sermon from either of the 2 of you, and I'm wrestling with it, and then how do I share my wrestling, So.
Well, it's so much more authentic, right? To share your authenticity as a parent or a grandparent or an aunt or uncle, but to be authentic about your faith, and it's not just teaching, like you said, doctrine, not just teaching a belief system. You're talking about life as a daily engagement and these stories and traditions as part of our lives. Yeah, I like that.
Yeah, we do that at evening prayer time. At bedtime. I have younger kids, so your kids are older, right? So you're not doing bedtime anymore. But I'll invite them into something that was mysterious or something that surprised them, or what do they hope for when we think about prayer? What do we hope for, or who are we thinking about tonight, or was there some act of kindness? You probably know that children's book about filling someone's bucket. We use that phrase a lot. So inviting them, and then I share that too. In my prayer.
What you did. Yeah.
But it's often in these little moments, rather than sitting the kids down and saying, okay, now we're going to teach you about the faith.
Right.
Especially having older kids, I noticed that got harder to do as they got older, because they're becoming, they're thinking for themselves. Right. They're doing all the natural developmental stuff of pulling away from anything that dad's about, right? So it's been fun. Some of you all know my son is here on Sundays helping with the sextons, right? So, and youth group didn't really work for him, he just, for lots of reasons, so he didn't get connected here, and I worried about it and when they get older, it's not as easy to just say, we're going to church today.
Yeah, and you're going to do it.
Yeah, you're going to do this. But it's been so fun to watch, because he gets lots of these little moments with, helping Mrs. Collins get to her car, or seeing us do something in church, or overhearing us in a conversation about needing to care for someone in a certain way, and him going, I can just see the wheels working.
Yes.
Like,
Soaking
this
in.
is what church is about. Oh wow, they're actually helping, or dealing with a really challenging situation or moral issue or something. So I don't know. It's just in those little moments where you've got to slide it in, and occasionally we'll go to lunch afterwards and talk about it, and he'll want to bring something
great.
up. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be heavy-handed about sharing your faith.
It's just and I try, as the pastor. I mean, you probably, as the pastor, you feel this. I did feel some pressure, like, surely I've got to get my kids thinking, the correct way, and it almost always backfired for me. But you had a little better, your little.
Yeah, I don't know. We had a combination of, our children are 28 and 31 now. But growing up, they were in smaller churches, so that probably helped in some way because they were known, right? People knew who they were and all that, but in a good way. We were never in a church that expected them to behave a certain way. And they just seemed like they felt loved. Wherever they were, the people loved them. And so they didn't mind coming. But we also didn't give them an option. So we were also those parents who said, you have to go because we go to church. That's what we do. And, so that's just what we did. But, and that's all right. Our son right now, as a young adult, is not part of a church community, and our daughter just finished seminary.
She really dropped the Kool-Aid,
who knows?
Yeah. Well, it's such a good reminder, though, of what you just said, where they were in a church where they just felt loved. So for all of us who maybe don't have kids at home,
right,
they're still watching. They're still, paying attention to the people around and how are they acting, and do they feel
loved?
Seen and loved.
Yeah, absolutely. Knowing children's names in your congregation as a layperson.
Sometimes you can do things
huge.
when you're not the parent. They're listening in a way
Absolutely.
that's.
I would say I think this is for us. Our grandparents, my partner and I, are far away. Grandparents are far away, and so we have found this really beautiful intergenerational relationships that can be formed in our congregations, the synagogue or a church, and so just because you don't have a grandparent nearby or you're not parenting a child, there's so many opportunities in a congregation to connect with children, to teach Sunday school, or to be involved in children's lives, and our intergenerational mission projects are a way that some of that happens. I think there's congregational life, and this is maybe something else I might say. While I do think it's important for me as a parent to share my tradition or my experience, my faith journey, but I do that in partnership with, in our case, two communities, two congregations, And so working with Sunday school teachers, and Sandy is such a gifted minister of children and their families, and she shares these incredible resources that we have found really helpful. Her word to the children, or especially her faithful parenting videos.
That's great.
And partner with your Sunday school teacher, so you don't feel like as parents we have to do it all by ourselves.
That's right.
But it's not all Sandy's job, right? I mean, it's actually a relationship. We build a partnership, and those experiences being known in a congregation, this is a place where they're loved unconditionally, where they're going to engage in different values than they might get at school or with their peers. And they're going to develop those friendships year after year. I imagine your children did. They have these connections, these relationships.
Can I go back to something you said at the beginning, that you light a lot of candles at your house. And to talk first, let's just name that often the connection point is in the physical, the tangible world of smells and taste and touch.
Yeah, and
in
ritual.
a way.
That matter.
That matters so much. We think we've got to have our theology all right and
that
then
it's
give
all
it
right
to
here.
our kids, and then we panic because we don't have it all worked out, and so we don't say anything to our kids, right?
Yeah.
Just do the rituals. Just do those things because it connects.
Like the Advent candles.
Exactly. For them, just as much as it actually does, we know that this works for adults as well. So I don't.
And intentional prayer time. Either
Yeah, thank
around
you.
meals. We do a gratitude practice often at
Yeah.
meals instead of prayer, and then our evening prayer. And the other I would say is reading together as a family, right? Of course, at our age, at 6 and 8, we're reading constantly. But you know, Sandy curates these amazing book recommendations, and so when we read together as a family, and reading scripture, you know, both the Christian and Jewish traditions, our scriptures are so much narrative.
Yep.
Lots of
Kids
stories.
love great stories, and then I get curious about it, and I invite our children to get curious. What do you think, you know, the Apostle John was thinking, or what do you think Jesus was doing there? Just my own curiosity invites them into the narrative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I want to just share a short story about when our son was 4, almost 5, and we had kind of a tragedy loss in our extended friendship circles, and a teenage son died in a drowning accident. And so it was very traumatic. And when Tim and I got news, we were very upset, you know, when we got the news about it. And our son, who was 4 or 5 then, he saw us very emotional, and he said he started patting each of us, Tim and me, on the backs, and he said, "Hey, do you remember that story about Jesus when he raised the girl from the dead, or made the girl come back to life? Do you remember that story? We should tell that story." And it was like right to the story in the midst of that sadness, and we thought, oh, we didn't even know we knew that story. But he returned to that text, and I thought, oh, that's good, you know, to frame experience in that way in our traditions.
It's beautiful.
Yeah,
Oh my gosh.
yeah. So I would say, if there's one thing, or I would ask, if there's one thing that you would recommend as a parent with children in shaping faith, something to do, what would you say to do?
I would say, name my own curiosity about my faith journey. Name my curiosities out loud. Like model asking questions of our tradition. We've got centuries of theology that we're wrestling with, and how to make sense of tragedy. Say and name my curiosity out loud.
That's good.
And then model to sit with the questions.
Yeah,
And
that's good. How about you? What would you say?
I was gonna
Yeah,
put you
what
on
would
the
you-
spot.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, it is model. It's finding those little moments, not putting too much pressure on yourself, and just when it comes, you know, take
Let
the
it come
risk
naturally.
of sharing something that's authentic and from your heart. It's connecting more than you think it is.
Yeah, absolutely. Mine would be, in terms of taking faith from Sunday to Monday and into the week, is do family prayer before meals. Just make sure you say grace. Just have something that's a tangible difference than the rest of their lives, what they do in the rest of their days. It sounds, you know, in some ways cliche, but it really matters. It says this is different, what we do as a family.
And it's important.
It's really important. Yeah. Thank you
this has
so
been
much.
great.
Yeah, oh my gosh, thanks for
Really
inviting me.
appreciate
That's great.
it.
Yeah, thanks so much. Yeah.
We hope you have a wonderful evening. We hope that this conversation is fruitful and rich. And again, make a connection with other children. If you don't, have kids yourself, there are children in your life. We are sure that you can make this leap.
In your conversation tonight, I think we just want to open it up for you to share, you know, where is this challenging? Share some stories about times where you think you did make those kind of connections that maybe you didn't know. What are the rituals that you've found, those tangible places of connection that work for your family or for your grandkids? So we hope it's a rich conversation for you, and thanks again, Jason. This is great. All right. Bye.